when I was given the opportunity to play him, I thought this is a great opportunity to find out who that man was before he became that famous figure that we all have in mind when we think of him. And this is ultimately a great opportunity for an actor to discover so much and to create, yeah, like a human being behind a facade. And especially being German, having grown up with a Karl Lagerfeld who was always very present in our culture, it was just a gift.
Tell me about this call to play this role of this iconic designer who I think people know in many ways more by image than by personality.
Exactly. Most of the people would probably think of the persona that he then later on in his life had created, similar to the one of Andy Warhol, I always thought. I met him 20 years ago, and then there was only 1 second when I saw his eyes, and that was a very interesting moment, because his eyes were, not only witty and sharp, but also soft and shy. And so that was the split second where the armor cracked. And when I was given the opportunity to play him, I thought this is a great opportunity to find out who that man was before he became that famous figure that we all have in mind when we think of him. And this is ultimately a great opportunity for an actor to discover so much and to create, yeah, like a human being behind a facade. Especially being German, having grown up with a Karl Lagerfeld who was always very present in our culture, it was just a gift.
How was the anxiety level when they said, and you'll be speaking French the entire time?
Well, yes, it was. The anxiety level was high. On the other hand, I thought this is one of the reasons that I wanted to do that project in the first place, because I knew that the French culture was Karl's culture that he loved so much, and Paris became his home, and he wanted to conquer Paris as a young man. To me, it sometimes seemed that he was more French than German. So it seemed accurate to me that, especially in that chapter that they wanted to explore in the show, Paris needed to be the center, and it had to be done by French and in French. I mean, I like Karl Lagerfeld. I'm a little imposter every now and then. So in a first conversation with the producers, I said, "Ah, oui, 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 pas de problème. Yeah, I can speak perfect French," which wasn't the case. It was kind of rusty. I mean, I have family in France, and I spoke it quite well when I was a kid, but that needed a lot of work. But I thought, like, I'm always very picky when it comes to languages, because languages reflect so much who we are, and it wasn't only the French, but also the way he spoke it, that staccato rhythm that he had. And even the scenes in German with Marlene Dietrich, I wanted to capture that Hamburg accent because it reflects a certain kind of irony and sense of humor, and also certain kind of old money, wealth, bourgeoisie that I wanted to just hit, because it helped me in approaching this very mysterious, fascinating man. So it was that, and also the physicality, because I wanted to find something there which would help me. And then I said in many interviews that this bullfighting image was something that helped me. And it's an image that I, kept for the whole duration of the shoot. Even if the French colleagues were laughing at me, and thought it was ridiculous how I always did the torero moves, but it just kind of helped me. It was a pattern that immediately got me, into the right tension.
It's such a physical performance. I mean, it's so striking the way you stand as him, the posture, the way his chest is. I mean, see the way he holds his head, and it's so precise and specific. And I did read that you compared it. You said it was Matador like, and even that you went and you met with someone who knew him quite well, and he watched you walk. So, I mean, tell me about, was there a specific moment that you felt like, okay, I can now sort of, my body can embody this character?
I mean, as you know, this is always the most fascinating moment, and the process is so interesting because when does it make click? When do you feel that you have found something little sometimes, if it's a gesture or a feeling or a thought, and then, like a thread, you continue digging and searching. Um, so to me, after reading 4 different biographies, I was really like in a jungle of very confusing questions, because Karl Lagerfeld had made up so many different versions of his own life that it was difficult to find out, the truth, or what is the truth, and is the truth eventually also that important, um, so, but I knew that for certain, fields and paths that we would step on that were so intimate and private, I needed to find someone who knew him well, to get some insight that you cannot find in books and documentaries, etc. So I found this very fascinating man, Patrick Ourcade, historian, who worked for the Vogue for a long time in Paris and was friends with Karl Lagerfeld for 2 or 3 decades. And also in that chapter, because also I wanted to know about Karl when he was, the younger Karl.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally also find someone who knew Jacques de Bacheres. So this man had spent a lot of time with both of them, with Karl Lagerfeld and the big love of his life. And it was this man, I visited him in Paris in his great apartment filled with artwork. And at first, he had forgotten who I was, so I knocked at the door and said, "Vous êtes qui? Who are you?" I said, "Oh God, I'm Daniel Brühl. Huh? Who are you?" I said, "Well, I'm supposed to play color." Ah, oui, okay, come in, come in. And then he was completely unrestrained. He said, "Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Oh, your nails have to be longer because Karl loved to scratch people like a cat." And I said, "Like, this is great. What a detail. I mean, in any book I had found this piece of information." So I let and sometimes in the show, I think you still see it that I'm, I'm scratching. So I thought, great, this is starting pretty well. And then this old man said, "Come on, let me see you. Stand up, walk." So I was like on a catwalk. I was walking up and down. And he always said, like, "No, prouder, prouder, prouder." And then, because I'm half Spanish, I said, "Oh, what about a matador?" And that's when he said, "Ah, oui, Karl était un petit matador." And so to be macho and masculine on the one hand, but also feminine, graceful and elegant on the other. And also the corset, when you think of the bullfighters, the corset, I was talking to the costume designer to create suits that were getting throughout the show tighter and tighter, so that you constant have this feeling of pressure and you know.
Yeah.
So that all helped me massively to remotely believe myself to be Karl Lagerfeld and to approach him and to ultimately really believe myself and having then the freedom to create my own Karl Lagerfeld and not just a silly caricature or a copy, but being bold enough then to fill it also with the thoughts and ideas that I had.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it sounds like you are an actor who likes to research. I mean, you said you read multiple books and biographies and talked to people and everything. What is it like when you begin shooting, when you have to say, okay, I'm leaving all of my research behind and just becoming this person?
Well, this is the magical moment, and it's the thrill, and it's the fear and the nervousness, but also the excitement. It's all of that. And this is the very reason why I'm loving this job so much, and I never want to do anything else. It's exactly that fever that you feel, and that jumping into the cold water, as we say in Germany. So my very first scene was with Marlene Dietrich, with Sonny Mellis. That was my very first day. And you just don't know how it's gonna work out because you've done it for yourself in front of a mirror or in rehearsals, and you've worked with the script, and you've done all sorts of things in your preparation, but it's the moment of truth when you try and have to fill the room with truth and make the scenes alive. And then I had the feeling that after the first couple of takes, it kind of took off, and I thought, like, yeah, I'm getting an idea. But what I love also about this work is that it's an ongoing search and struggle, and you never finish it. There's also something beautiful about it, So I always compare playing these kinds of parts to these gigantic jigsaw puzzles. So in the case of Karl Lagerfeld, it was 10,000 pieces, and I might have covered a little corner, and there's still so much that I don't know. Because this man was so many things at a time. So even at the very end of the shoot, in which I had stayed in Paris for 8 months probably, and I wanted to stay in the neighborhood that he so much loved back in the day, Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Even on the days off, I always asked myself, what would Karl do today? And I found it so enriching to play that character because not only on a professional but also on a personal level, I learned so much. Because this guy was not only into fashion, he was into architecture and design and films and theater and literature and music. So but then, as I said before, even on the very last day, I thought, like, oh, I still haven't seen this, I still haven't read this, I still haven't done this. So in case they invite us to a second dance with this show, I would probably be delighted and say happily say yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that was on the table, that we could see more of Lagerfeld's, because this is from the 70s to the early 80s until he gets Chanel. And then it is so interesting to think about playing him as he got older, as he got even more established.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a thought, and these days everything has become very unpredictable. So, but in my mind, also in creating the character, I always had it in mind because if there would be the opportunity, it would be interesting to then slowly create these shields and the armor that and then eventually become that persona that I had met. But I wanted to see why before. I wanted to see a Karl Lagerfeld who was vulnerable and fragile and accessible and insecure. And not only him, everyone around him too. Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger and Theodore Jacques de Bacher, magnificently played by Theodore Pellerin. And they are all insecure. They're all desperately trying to be loved and respected and looking for appreciation, but they're all very vulnerable. So and Karl Lagerfeld is not seen at all like that in Germany. People would think of him as a very witty, sharp, well-read, arrogant, cold and distant. Well, not cold, that's too much, but distant man. So that whole German romantic side to him that I saw when I read about what he read and enjoyed reading in literature, and the music, Strauss, the music that he was listening to and all that, I just wanted to show him as a romantic man,
I'm glad that you mentioned Marlene Dietrich, because, and I am blown away that was your first, that was the first thing that you shot, because it's one of my favorite moments in the whole series, because you really see how much, and it's a real testament to your performance, because you see how much he is holding in. I mean, there are volumes of what he is thinking, from the pain and on down, and embarrassment, but also surprise and confidence going on after that encounter with her when she doesn't like what he designed for her to wear. And it's one of the shot on your face, and even as he talks about it afterwards, it's like it's like your insides are pouring out.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I always had the feeling that there were there were traits that you're also looking for, I guess, when you to connect, and traits that are resonating with you, traits of character and experiences that, and and with Karl Lagerfeld, I always thought that I I I know a little bit about what he has gone through, but in the mildest version. So I found it interesting to play someone who has lived this his whole life in extremes. So the limelight that I experienced as an actor is nothing in comparison to the brightness and the pop colors of Karl Lagerfeld's fame in the world. Crazy. And the fashion world is so much crazier than ours, I think. And it's even faster and and not healthy at all,
Mm-hmm.
To keep up sanity in this for such a long time is just unbelievable. And on the other hand, that solitude and loneliness that I also experience in some chapters of my life, more or less, but not to an extreme like Karl Lagerfeld. So it was interesting to really get into these juxtapositions, into these contrasts, and yeah, and deal with the humiliation that you have experienced yourself and the embarrassment, but also the need to be loved. Also, as a German actor, to try and leave your own country and make it somewhere else and be the outsider. Um, to me, it was maybe America or England. But again, also not comparable to young Karl Lagerfeld in the 70s, coming from Germany,
Mm-hmm.
temple of fashion, as in Paris, who were celebrating their gods, like Yves Saint Laurent, and coming from Hamburg or the Schleswig-Holstein, the area around it. So very admirable, the hunger, the persistence, the discipline and focus that this young brave man had. This was all, yeah, just a luxury to play around with and to get to sink your teeth in it. Huh? Yeah.
I know we just have a minute or so left, but I wanted to ask you, to the extent to which every character leaves its mark on the actor who plays him, what was the mark that Lagerfeld left on you?
I want to keep up. It's my 46th birthday, the day after tomorrow. So I'm getting older, and I don't want to become too nostalgic when I'm older. I don't know if I will have this infinite um, incredible curiosity in life and in human beings, and also the younger generation and the zeitgeist, to keep up, with the current pulse, and not starting to, become someone who's looking back and thinking like everything was better before, and becoming too nostalgic. So to keep this incredible curiosity in life, I guess, is something that I would like to take away from playing that character.
Well, Daniel, it's an extraordinary performance. Becoming Karl Lagerfeld is streaming now on Hulu. Daniel Brühl, you blow me away. I feel like every time I see you on screen and on this series yet again. So thank you so much for joining all of us here at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation.
Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you.